So now we have Reggie Henry joining us, and Reggie Henry is the Chief Information and Engagement Officer at ASAE, the American Society of Association Executives. And Reggie is the perfect person to be at Engage 2020 because he works on technology and engagement like we do. And he also sits in an association that has to engage its members like we're doing with a lot of our clients. But Reggie's also seeing what they're doing to engage their members. So he has the perspective of hundreds and hundreds of associations and how they're working and how they're successful. So I was thinking, who are the most important people for us to have here? And Reggie was at the top of the list. So everyone, please welcome Reggie Henry.
Hi, folks. I'm Reggie Henry, Chief Information and Engagement Officer at ASAE. And I just want to share some thoughts I have around engagement in this new normal time that we're in right now. My first thought is how critical it is for us to shift our thinking from the transactional perspective that we're all used to. What have our members bought from us lately, to more of a conversational, relational perspective. Engagement has to be based on what members need. In fact, my mantra to our staff is, how can we be present at the point of need? That's our thinking right now. So engagement shouldn't be a few transactional touch points during the year, culminating in a dues renewal invoice. It should really be a series of interactions that you have with your members throughout the year, where we try to glean what they need, and then a series of steps to fulfill those needs. And maybe the culmination becomes not how should you renew your dues, but we just had a wonderful year taking care of your needs. What are the needs you have for next year? It's that kind of thing. It's a two-way street. My guess is that what your members need from you right now is very different from what they needed from you a year ago. But how do you know? We use a tool called Prop Fuel, and that tool allows us to engage in one-on-one conversations with our members over a period of time. And it also has the workflow built in to allow us to address whatever those things are our members say they need in that tool. And so it becomes a conversation. It really does become an engagement conversation with our members based on what their needs are. I call this a system of action. So my question to us is, most of us have systems of record. How do we transition our infrastructures from systems of record to systems of action? Because we all need them right now. We need them more than ever. One of the ways we engage with our members is through events. And right now, we can't do those. We can't have the kind of events we would typically have where we see our members and hug our members and talk to our members, etc. But this doesn't have to be a negative. In fact, I think this is a time of extreme innovation. There's opportunity here. It's time to innovate like crazy. So just take a step back and think, what can I do when time and location are no longer a barrier? What can I do if time and location are no longer a barrier? So for example, what says that your event has to be the normal 2 or 3 days it is? You could have a week-long annual meeting if you want to, or a 2-week-long annual meeting. And maybe the meeting only goes from 9 to 12 each day as opposed to a full day crammed with everything you can imagine in that day. And who says our exhibit halls only have to be open for a certain amount of time? In fact, if your members need what's in the exhibit hall, why can't the exhibit hall be open all month or all year, or for whatever time your members need it to be open? So I think there's time for innovation there. When people attend events, they do so not only to interact with content, but to interact with other people. And from what I've seen so far, and I probably have attended now 40 different virtual events, we get the content piece down pretty well. We've even done virtual happy hours, and we've done some virtual keynote addresses and things like that. What we haven't figured out well yet is how to do virtual networking. One-on-one networking when it's called for, peer group networking when it's called for. I think there's some innovation we can do around that. So I think that's one of the things that's going to be key. And video is a key component to that. We're used to communicating by seeing each other as we're talking to one another. And one of the things that drives me insane is people being on Zoom and not having the video on. Well, then just call me up on the telephone. We can have a normal conversation if that's what you want to do. But I think when we get to this, in these times where people are starving to see each other and be with each other, this sense of belonging gets really to a heightened level when people can see each other. And I think that's critical right now. You know, this pandemic has put us in a place where we've had to innovate in some other areas really, really quickly. I think we've learned really quickly that work is no longer a place. Work happens where work needs to happen, and we've done a pretty good job of innovating around making work happen in this pandemic. Well, the truth of the matter is, at least for right now, as much as I would love to be with my colleagues in an annual meeting setting or a conference setting or event setting, events are no longer a place right now either. And so the same fervor that we brought to figuring out how to conduct work in a virtual environment, including conversations and including networking and including all the things, onboarding of new employees, et cetera, we've got to apply those same techniques, that same fervor, and that same sense of will and innovation to how we do our meetings. So that's the challenge I think we have in front of us. And I think video will help us in a lot of ways, but we have to reimagine not only content, but also networking in those meetings environments. So those are my quick thoughts about all of this right now. I'd love to have your feedback.